Okay. We do have a few more people that are going to be arriving shortly. I will be letting them in as they do arrive, but I do want us to start on time as we have an abundance of information with someone who has an incredible amount of experience and 5 producers with 5 wines that we want to afford the right amount of time for. So thank you very much for joining us here for our second installment of the inaugural edition of the Chianti Classico Esperienza. My name is Will Preedom, for those of you I don't know, and I'm one of the managers to organize this event. Before we begin with John, I would like to introduce Christine Lecter from the Chianti Classico Consortio. Just say a few words.
Thank you, Will. And hello and welcome everybody. In behalf of the Consorzio Vino Chianti Classico and our president Giovanni Manetti, I'm glad to welcome you today to the, like Will said, to the second part of our virtual series. Despite the current situation due to COVID-19, we are extremely glad to come back to Canada, even so in a new way. And we have been constantly working on the Canadian market for more than 10 years now, and we could not miss this opportunity to use the current communication tools to reach out to present trade professionals. In this way, we can strengthen our beautiful relationship with Canada, which is the second export market for Chianti Classico. Thanks to our Squadra Gallonero, today we have a really very strong Gallonero team here. We, together with John Zavo, we will discover a territory, meaning a mixture of soils, altitudes, expositions of the vineyards that makes the difference. So please, John, and of course, so I want to say also a special thank, of course, to Will Preedom and his team, Amanda and Mike. They are in charge of the organization. And now the word to John, please.
Benissimo, thank you, and welcome everyone on this beautiful snowy Toronto day. We know the weather is nicer in Chianti Classico, so let's take a little virtual tour there. Taste some wines. I hope you've got them all open. Actually, hope you took the time to taste them before sitting down, but if not, then you'll have the rest of the bottle for the rest of the day. And on that note, I hope you all enjoyed, as much as I did, that Ascari box. Just nod if you had the time to taste that. There were some brilliant little things in there. And I tell you what, there's a lot of terrible things with COVID, but I think we're getting a little spoiled here with some of these events because, we got a bunch of wines, we got some great food, and we're almost able to virtually live the experience. Although, of course, we all want to travel and get back to the region and meet the producers face to face, which will hopefully happen soon. But until then, here we are, virtually across the globe joining. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go through these 5 wines. Obviously, I've got the theme, which I'll introduce in a moment, but I just want to welcome and introduce the panelists who will be speaking. Let me introduce them in order. You're all on mute for now, but they will be called in as necessary. And just a reminder to those of you who have some questions, put them into the chat. There's no Q&A this time around. Just pop them into the chat. You can send them directly, or you can share them with everybody on the call. Share your comments. This is supposed to be the sort of interactive part of it. By all means, make whatever comments, but serious questions, if you want to direct them at someone specifically, maybe just put the name of the winery or the winemaker that you want to send the question to. If not, then I'll direct it where it makes more sense. Or if you're like the perennial tireless student, Christopher Seeley, and you pre-sent some questions, how's that for dedication? Thank you, Christopher. We will get to whatever doesn't get answered in the course of things. Don't feel badly if you didn't pre-send questions. I know you will have lots as we go through. I certainly have lots, but let's introduce Niccolò Profeta. If you could just give us a wave there from San Fabiano Calcinaia. I'm going to introduce in order of speaking. Fabrizio Benedetti. Fabrizio, dove sei?
Hello.
Castello di Monte Rinaldi. Welcome.
Hi.
In a moment.
Thank
And
you.
from Rocca delle Macchia, we have Sergio Zingarelli and Thomas Francioni. Welcome, Sergio and Thomas. From San Felice, Leonardo Bellaccini.
Hello. Let me please introduce also Alexandre, which is our new export manager, which is now here he is.
Welcome, Alexander.
Pleasure to meet you guys.
And we also have Marco Ricasoli from Rocca dei Montegrossi. Marco, welcome. Thank you for joining us. All right, so I'm going to share my screen now, and let's get into the details. Do I have the power now, Will? I do. All right. Okay, I know you can all read, and we're not going to get too heavy on the words of a PowerPoint, but just keep in mind it's an aid to keep us on track and on point, and also give the producers who are speaking a foreign language, let's not forget some of the words they need to tell us the story. So thanks, by the way, for signing up. I know it doesn't sound like the sexiest topic, maybe not the most riveting topic, vineyards, farming techniques, all these sorts of things, but what I really want to get out, or what I want you to get out of this session, is a much more close physical link between the styles of Sangiovese that we're going to be talking from Chianti Classico, tied directly back to soil. And we're going to talk a lot about soil and its impact on Sangiovese in particular, and hopefully provide you with the vocabulary that you can use going forward in your discussions with producers of Chianti Classico to understand, even understand better for yourselves, the styles that you like, where to find them, what soil types, what elevations, what aspects, what farming techniques tend to produce those styles of wine, because of course we don't have to all like the same Chianti Classico, and as we know, they come in a wide variety of styles. I mean, it's an amazingly diverse region. So that's what I hope to get out of it, and please direct your questions as we go along. Oh, do I have to admit Edmana Johnson? Does she come in? I've got the power now to everything. All right, you've seen all of these names. So quick little recap. I know you've probably all been through one of Michael Goodell's brilliant Chianti Classico seminars, so you're familiar with the lay of the land, the area, but just to remind you that the area of Chianti Classico is in the province of Siena and Firenze. If you're not sure where you are while in the region, just check the license plate on the cars driving around. If there's an SI, you're in Siena. If there's an FI, you are in Firenze. But this is the historic land that was, of course, demarcated back in 1716 by Cosimo Medici III, Grand Duke of Tuscany at the time. And I know you all know this, but let me just say it one more time, because it is still sometimes confusing, the difference between Chianti and Chianti Classico. I'm going to make a mess of it, so Christine, just cut me off if I'm confusing people further. But check it out. So Chianti is a district, right? This is the area that you're looking at now that was demarcated in 1716. Chianti today is the wine that's made everywhere outside of Chianti. All right, I know that's confusing, but that encompasses all of the surrounding areas, the other DOCs like Chianti Colissenesi, Aretini, etc., etc. So Chianti today, DOCG, is outside of the region of Chianti, historic region of Chianti. The wine Chianti Classico is the only wine that's made in Chianti. How's that? Did I just confuse everyone? Is that all ultra clear now? So it's a distinct wine. It's a separate DOCG as of the mid-90s. So completely different, disciplinare, different rules and regulations of engagement. Okay, so you all know that. These are the main communes: San Casciano Val di Pesa, Grevin, Chianti, Radda, Gaiole, Castelnuovo Beredenga, Castellina, and Tavernelle Barberino, and Poggibonsi, small little corner there. All right, so those are the communes that you'll hear used. That's what you'll see on the labels of Chianti Classico bottles. The whole area, and here's where it gets interesting, the whole area is almost 72,000 hectares. I'm not talking vineyard planted, I'm talking the area itself. So it's a sizable piece of land, and that is already a window onto the diversity that we are going to be discussing. In those 72,000 hectares, about 10%, 7,200 hectares, are inscribed into Chianti Classico, right? You have to have your vineyard inscribed, you have to register it in order to be able to produce Chianti Classico. But there are also 10,000 hectares of olive trees. So one important thing to keep in mind is that the area is extremely diverse. There's lots of forest, there's lots of unplanted land, there are olive groves. It's a real region of biodiversity before biodiversity was even a word. In fact, there's a long tradition in Tuscany of viticultura or agricultura promiscua, which means promiscuous agriculture, and it means exactly like that. You plant a number of different things all in the same parcel of land, which is becoming more and more important, I think, as we look for more natural ways to combat disease and pests that are problems in big monocultures. Here, it's not one expansive vineyard. It is a very diverse place. So it has found a natural balance. That's why the instance of organic viticulture is on a steep incline, certainly sustainable and also organic, because I'm never going to say it's easy to do, but it can be done relatively more easily than other parts of Italy and the world. All right, so let's get into the details now of what we're really on about, which is diversity within the region. So Sangiovese Grosso for the most part these days, or Sangioveto, the historic name for it in the area, is blessed and I guess cursed by the fact that it is extremely transparent as a variety, right? Not to compare it to Pinot Noir or Chardonnay or Riesling or Nebbiolo, but it really does strongly reflect the area that it grows in. So here I just threw this map up to give you an idea of the general soil types, but this map doesn't come anywhere near to really describing the actuality, the reality on the ground, which is to say, yes, you know, there's a little bit more clay limestone on the eastern side of the appellation, a little bit more of the marley limestone, Scaglia Toscana, as they call it, on the western side. But after that, it really goes literally meter by meter. And I've been in many vineyards. I know Godel will agree with me that you can go from sandy clay soils into super hard limestone Albarese and back down into fractured Galestro in a very short walk. So this is both the greatness and I think the challenge for Chianti Classico producers, considering that the average estate size is fairly large, right? These are not micro estates. And I would draw maybe an unapt comparison here to Rioja over in Spain, another very large area with historically large estates that draw fruit from a number of different areas. It's very difficult, or yet I would say one wonders what crews have yet to emerge, how many Musigny's and Montrachets have yet to be discovered in the Chianti Classico region, because, and this is what the work of the last 20 years has been about, how many of those little micro parcels, micro terroirs have yet to be discovered. The producers on the panelists today are already far down that road, but I'll tell you, there's still a lot of exciting work to be done as smaller and smaller, more single vineyard wines hit the market. You're all aware of the Gran Selezione category, although it's not based on single vineyards, it has kind of evolved in that direction. Without, you know, the impetus from above, it has come up from the producer saying, okay, what is my best terroir? What is my best micro parcel? I'm going to separate that out and create my top level Gran Selezione. So we're getting there. We're not fully there yet. And there's so much more to be discovered. And then beyond soils, of course, there's every slope aspect, elevation you can imagine, from just a couple hundred meters up to, I guess, 650, almost 700 meters for the highest vineyards in Chianti Classico. So awesome diversity in that sense as well. Okay, so let us move on. I'm going to give you some basic words just so that you have them in your back pocket. You've heard probably about the main soil types here. I'll give you the 4 principal ones, starting with Albarese. So, okay, here's another confusing thing about Tuscany and Chianti Classico. These are soil types or rock types that exist in other parts of the world, but they have very local names. So I want to connect you with the local names and how they're also known in other parts of the world, so you can start to make the connection. In short, Albarese is a very hard limestone, all right? Variations in marls. Marl is just a dirty limestone with a little bit of clay, sometimes some sand mixed in. But if you can remember that you would want to build a house with Albarese, whereas with Galestro, you would not want to build your house. And you can see this around. It's part of reading the geology and the landscape when you're traveling in the region. You'll see houses made of Albarese because it's a hard, useful building stone, whereas Galestro, another confusing, not even rock type, but state of degradation, if you will, is more of a schistous some say shale, some say mudstone, compacted mudstone, but the important thing is it can be fractured. So you get a different growing environment for the roots and a different access to nutrients, fertility, and so on. But for mine opinion, and we'll talk to the producers in a moment, 2 of the top soils here that give wines with plenty of minerality, higher acidity, tension, more vertical wines, you could say. And then 2 other main types of soils, Macigno Toscano, essentially sandstone, compacted sand with very little lime, and clays. So Macigno, in my experience, and again, we'll get more into this, more easygoing, lighter, fragrant, less structured wines, whereas clay are broad, they're more horizontal compared to the verticality of, say, an Albarese or a Hard Galestro type of wine. Debate to ensue. All right, so let's bring in Niccolò Profeta from San Fabiano Calcinaia. Let's bring in, by the way, go ahead and taste the wine. I'm going to pour it into my glass as well. Niccolò.
Yeah, okay.
Bentornato. So you're going to tell us a little bit about the estate, which is in Castellina in Chianti. So maybe I'll just pull that up on
exactly.
the map.
So first of all, hi to everyone again. I would like to introduce you, first of all, the location of our winery of San Fabiano Calcinaia. It's a very particular location because, as you can see on the map here, in this slide and on the other one, we are actually on the borderline, we can say, in an area always in Castellina in Chianti that covers Castellina in Chianti and a little bit of Poggibonsi area. So our hills, our vineyards go from 250 meters until 500 meters above this level. So we have really a particular location. Can I go on or? Okay.
Yes. Sorry, my chat window just covered the slide advance.
Okay, so only in a few words, some key facts of the winery. The winery is managed from 1983 from Mr. Serio and his wife. We have totally area of 165 hectares, of which 46 of vineyards, divided into the area of Castellina in Chianti, named Cellole, and the main area in San Fabiano. Since 2012, we are also organically certified, and we manage all our grapes by our side, we say. So our grapes are only hand harvested, and we use mainly Sangiovese grape from the estate of San Fabiano and from Cellole. I would like to focus on the name of the winery. San Fabiano is for sure the name of the medieval village, and Calcinaia. Calcinaia highlights actually the origin of the soil, of the main soil that we have in our estate. Calcinaia comes from calcina and then calce, that reminds us to a calcareous and a clay soil. Actually, in San Fabiano, so in the lowest hills, in the lowest vineyards of the estate, our soil is made mainly of clay and sandstone. So today I would like to focus on this type of terroir, because our wine that I will show you today and we taste together is our San Fabiano Calcinaia Chianti Classico Annata. Because on the on the highest vineyard in Cellole, we produce our Gran Selezione. But today I will focus on one type of terroir, that is this one.
You just give us a little rundown. We've got these nice vineyard shots that you sent over of your experience with the different sites, the different soils, and the expression in the glass, and then we'll get on to the specific wine that we have here.
Yeah, exactly. So here you can see some pics of our type of soil. So these are 3 of our vineyards located, all 3 in San Fabiano area. And here you can find Sangiovese grapes, used 90% to produce this wine. So you can go to the previous.
I think I have a shot of Cellole. So this is the vineyard you use for your
other
Gran Selezione, which is a little bit away from San Fabiano, from the rest of the vineyards. What is the main soil type that you have here, and what's the difference in elevation?
Here we have Galestro soil, so another type of soil. And in fact, the Sangiovese planted in Cellule and used for the Gran Selezione gives more and more elegance to the final product, to the wine. So here we have another type of tannin also, and another roundness, we can say. Instead, in Chianti Classico Annata, in a San Fabiano soil with clay, we have other features like a little bit stronger tannin and also a different acidity in respect of the Gran Selezione of Cellule.
So would you attribute those differences you're describing more to elevation or more to the Galestro that predominates in Cellule?
So I think both features are important. So in Cellule we have also different temperatures, and also several temperature ranges. So this brings to also a later maturation of the grape. In fact, we harvest the grapes in Cellule at the beginning of October, and the other temperature and the other climates that we have in San Fabiano allowed us to start the harvest before, so middle of September, as the maturation of the grape is earlier. So I would say both. Sun exposition also is another very important fact for our winery, and the two kind of soils.
All right, so
Okay.
we discussed. You want to talk a little bit more about this, or shall we get on to the wine?
Yeah, exactly. So here I've written some features of the terroir in San Fabiano Calcinaia. So the vineyards is located 250 meters above the sea level. The vine training that we use, and it's the most used for Sangiovese in this area, is the Cordone Speronato, Cordon Spur. And this allowed us to receive more quality grapes. Then about the soil, I have already said we had clay and substrates of calcareous substrate and sandstone. So this is also very important, and this underlines also another difference to Cellule soil. In San Fabiano, we have a more damp soil, and this works as a natural storage of water for the soil. And this is also very important during also all season of the year. Then also
we're getting a question here from Christopher just about the depth of soil. I would assume, but that's a dangerous thing to do, that there is deeper soil in the San Fabiano area and less soil or shallower soil before you get to the mother rock in Cellule. Is that true?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. So in fact, we have higher temperature in Cellule and less temperature in San Fabiano.
Yeah, this is just a little shot of harvest, but let's go on and taste the wine. You can see all the details there. I think you've got access to all of these tech sheets, everyone out there. So we'll taste this wine. I'll give my impression. Anyone has some thoughts? I want to focus, or I'd ask you to focus particularly on structure. You can smell whatever you want, but for me, the link between Sangiovese and soil happens predominantly on the palate, structurally, both in terms of acidity and especially the grain of tannin. And Niccolò, you mentioned that you see a difference in tannin structure between the upper vineyard on Galestro, Cellule, and those down in San Fabiano. Can you describe what that means to you, or how it's different from what we have in the glass, because we don't have the Gran Selezione here today?
Okay, so in a few words, I can say that here from the glass, we can say already we can focus our attention on the color. So this is the very typical ruby red color of the Sangiovese. And in a few words, I can say also that the main differences between the Sangiovese that we have here in Chianti Classico Annata and Gran Selezione Cellule is that this kind of Sangiovese that is come from a clay soil focus on structure and color. So here we can say, even if the vintage is very young because it is a 2018 vintage, but here the color is very, very, very strong, and rubin red is very present. And then about the structure. So all features that already I mentioned, climate, temperature, and soil influence, we can say, the soil, also the sun exposition, as I said. And so the structure also we can taste. So in the mouth, we can taste this impressive freshness, and this go in the right way with Sangiovese. But here tannin is very, very strong. So this is not only due to the vintage of the wine, but also to this kind of soil. So the clay, as I said, gives always this structure to the grape, and it can be reflected in the mouth during taste.
I'd say just a word on vintages here, if we could. We're going to be tasting 3 vintages, 2018. This is the only one we'll be tasting from that vintage, then 3 2017s and 1 2014. So we're really looking at opposite ends of the scale in terms of heat and moisture in those vintages. 14 being very cool and wet, more on that. 17 being very hot and dry. 18 for me, when I tasted last year in February at the Anteprime, I thought it was a great vintage, really lovely, juicy, fresh, great freshness of fruit. Maybe not wines for the longest aging, with some exceptions, but wines that have this immediacy. And I find a little bit of that here. You know, certainly the tannins are present as you describe them, but I don't find them to be big, aggressive tannins. And, you know, for me, Sangiovese, the water availability makes a big difference. If Sangiovese goes into stress, gets into some hydric stress, then the tannins can occasionally become a little bit dried out and dusty and hard. And I saw that.
So I would say not aggressive, as you said, but still present. So also in the aftertaste, you can feel the tannin. So this for me is the one of the difference between Annata, so San Fabiano soil, and Gran Selezione. Here, in this wine, you cannot say that tannin is soft. That's what I mean.
Well, it's Sangiovese at the end of the day. I mean, it's rarely, if ever, soft and round and fuzzy and cuddly. I mean, that's the beauty of it. It's a variety that has lots of acid and lots of tannin, and what makes it so age-worthy. All right, great. Niccolo, you're sticking with us. We're going to bring you back in at the end with some more questions.
Thank you very much for your attention.
But now let's bring in Fabrizio from Castello di Monte-Rinaldi, who, as I've learned in my research, is a certified sommelier with ICE. Is that correct?
Yes, it's correct. Yeah.
So you spent a lot of time tasting and comparing. So
third level WSET as well, recently.
Bravo.
Grazie.
All right, so Monte-Rinaldi, a great historic property. There was already one question that Christopher sent ahead of time. What does tempo and temperanza mean? And that turtle on the label, I imagine.
Yeah, that's right.
Something to do with the longevity. I mean, the first mention of Monte-Rinaldi, by the way, was back in 1010. Yes, that's the year 1010, and that's why you see on the label dall'anno 1000. So literally, the castle's been around since well, over 1,000 years. Not much of it left, I understand. The Senese had to go at it back in 1200, and then the Second World War didn't do it any favors. But you know, when we were there last year, I remember seeing some remnants of this ancient property. But please give us the background details.
Yeah. So good evening. I mean, good afternoon, good morning for you guys. This is Fabrizio Benedetti, and I'm sales manager from Castello Monte-Rinaldi. So Castello Monte-Rinaldi is located in Radda in Chianti. So we are actually in between actually Panzano and Radda in Chianti. The commune is Radda in Chianti, but not too far away from Panzano and Chianti as well. So we own 50 hectares of vineyards, 50 hectares, which is mostly of them are grown with Sangiovese. Let's say 95% is Sangiovese. All vineyards registered under the DOCG of Chianti Classico. We have you see this slide, which is actually the total of the property of Monte-Rinaldi. In particular, the black sections are actually the 17 different micro, vineyards, micro terroirs. We have been able to identify in the property. So we have, of course, we have subdivided them according to different characteristics. First, soil, but not only the soil, the different clones. Actually, we are counting 17 different clones of Sangiovese. Many of them, some of them are coming even from the clones developed by the project 2000 Chianti Classico project, that were they were developed 5 different clones with different characteristics. So
Fabrizio, when did Monterinaldi start this parcellation process of identifying small parcels?
We actually, I mean, the project actually started in 2007, 2008. Then it was brought over together with even the help of the Agricultural University of Florence. And so actually we were able to identify all the 17 terroirs in 2012, 2013. That was the range of time. So there are clones, as I say, different clones, but even a different elevation. Let's consider that the winery has vineyards at 300, minimum 320 meters above sea level, up to 450, 460 meters above sea level, in different aspects, looking at the sun, different, of course, even as we were saying before, type of soil. As we were saying before, is the same from Fabiano and Calcinaia, different soil. Mainly we have 2 kinds of different rocks and stones, which are of course the Galestro and the Alberese. In general, we can say that in a lower elevation vineyards, we are finding much more Galestro, which is a schistous, as you were saying before. So it's being a sedimentary soil. The Galestro is much more on the lower elevation, and the Alberese stays much more on the higher altitude vineyards. Radda in Chianti is a commune, is an area which is quite cool in terms of climate. There is a big, I mean, daily breezes for sure during even summertime, when we have, especially recently, 2017, for example, which is the vintage that we have brought today. We are presenting today, but it's very hot. So even in the very hot summers, we are able, thanks to the location, we are able to preserve, the freshness, this crunchy, fruity, which is coming through always.
Indeed, there was a time, although Radda is a very historic part, they've been making wine there for millennia. There was a time, if I'm not mistaken, in the 50s, 60s, 70s, in the transition period, when Radda was kind of forgotten because it was that much cooler than many other parts of the Chianti Classico zone. And, it would have been a challenge in some years to ripen Sangiovese, whereas now we have vintages like 17, 18, 19, 20 warm vintages where, there are certain advantages to being at these high elevations in the cooler part of the area.
Yeah.
But I have to ask you this: you've done all of this work in your opinion, or that of Monterinaldi in general. What is the most significant factor in the growing of Sangiovese? Is it the specific soil type? Is it the elevation? Is it the clone? I mean, when you made these distinctions, when you separated these parcels out, what was it that really drove the separation of different areas? So
I believe that for sure in position number 1, I would say the soil. Then of course even the clones are very important. But what makes a difference is the soil composition for sure. What you are showing now, this is which is the Urliano vineyard, which is our vineyard number 4 on the map, and this is as you can see, it's very rich in Galestro, which is actually the most used vineyard, together with others, of course, but for the used for the Chianti Classico Annata, which is presented today.
How often do you have to change the tires on your tractors? That's some pretty ferociously stony soil.
Yeah, many times, unfortunately. Higher the expensive, for sure. So yeah, this is the same, the Urliano vineyard. That's an interesting picture because you can see that we adopt even remove and lift stripping as soon before the harvest. This helps the best sun exposition to the sun. And this, of course, it's a practice that is not done every year. It's done when the vintage is not that hot.
In the cooler, wetter years, I imagine.
That was
photo wasn't taken in 2017, for example.
No. That was, I think, the 2016 vintage. So that's another very important thing. Then we have as a vine training. We use mostly. We do have even the cordon spur pruned, but we are turning now much more to the change in the system, and we're turning much more to the head training with replacement cane, because this helps to reduce the risk of frost, because the cane being banded has a bottleneck when you bend it, and so you slow down the limb, and you are able to postpone a little bit, and later the bud
break.
burst. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
And that's a very important aspect to point out, because we are changing mostly of the vineyards of Sangiovese, switching to the replacement cane.
Okay, more on that in a moment. I see you hire tourists to do leaf stripping, or is that the fellow just lost in the vineyard there?
Yeah.
All right, let's. I know you've got a number of different shots here, but let's talk briefly about this.
Yeah, that's Montevinaldi vineyard, which is a vineyard which was changed and replanted in 2009. This is one of our highest vineyards we have in the property. It's very here. It's maybe you can see from the picture, but it's more the Alberese predominant instead of Galestro.
I can see we're at the top of the hill where there's more Alberese in general. That seems to be a pattern, although it's not hard and fast, but very, very stony soil. And what's the elevation here? You said about 450?
450, 450, 460. You see even the slope, I mean, it's very high and very steep, the aspect.
And your description of a Galestro Sangiovese versus an Alberese Sangiovese?
Galestro is much more for us used for the Chianti Classico Annata, while in general the Alberese, so highest vineyards, are more used for the Riserva and for our cru, which is the Vigneto Boscone. The Galestro being a marl, but even with clay, compared to the Alberese releases, still very, of course, high acidity and fresh wines, but comparing the two, a little bit more rounder, if you want, compared to the Alberese.
So Alberese, a little bit more tannic backbone, perhaps more ageability as a result, with high acid and high tannin.
Exactly. Yeah.
Benissimo. All right, let's have a look at this wine here. And all comments welcome here again. Particularly, let's have a look at that.
Yeah, there is an interesting. I think I don't know if it's here, but there is an interesting fact. I mean, if there is no acidity here, but even we have today the 2017 on tasting, and even considering the 2017 has been very hot and dry. We still have 6.50 something in terms of tartaric acid in this wine you are tasting today. So even though the vintage was extremely hot, I mean, thanks to the climate, thanks to the location in Radda, we were able to have a good freshness in the wine.
That was one of the things that I noted last year in the tasting, is that the wines from these higher elevation sites, Radda in particular, Lamole, a lot more freshness without any of the raisin fruit character that I found in some of the wines from the warmer or lower lying areas. And acid certainly quite high here. In fact, really high for 2017, with tannins that I find still a little aggressive, to be honest, still a little dusty. I would give this wine another few years in bottle to polish and sand those down a little bit. There's questions about winemaking. And by the way, if you're joining us for episode number 5, I'm going to be back to talk about the winemaking techniques applied to Sangiovese to bring out certain characters. So do join us, come back for that. But any last thoughts, Fabrizio, about this 2017 you'd like to share? Tempo e Temperanza, can you
Tempo e
describe?
Temperanza 2017. So the color is bright, is brilliant, but not too rich in color for sure, if you look at it. So typical color of Sangiovese from Radda area. Then the nose it's a fresh and nice character like cherry and rose bushes, all typical things of the Sangiovese from this area. But to be if you compare to the 2016, which is of course not today, you cannot do it today, but the nose and the flavors are a little bit more developed, fruity compared to the 2016, for example, which was much cooler. So that's something to point out, even though by the nose, if you don't have the comparison side by side, you cannot tell. But I can tell you that the nose and the flavors, it's a good mirror, of what happened outside in the 2017.
That's the beauty of Sangiovese. Grazie, Fabrizio. We'll bring you back at the end. I'm sure we'll have a couple of questions.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to Rocca delle Macchie in Castellina. Back to Castellina, we have Sergio Zingarelli and Thomas Francione, who will be joining us. Sergio, many of you might remember, former president of the Consorzio Chianti Classico, well known to Torontonians, has been here many times. Although his accent is a little funny, it's not exactly Tuscan, because the family, of course, comes from Rome, and the estate was founded by Italo Zingarelli, who those of you who are film buffs will certainly remember was an important producer. One of my favorite films that I studied in university from Ettore Scuola, C'eravamo tanto amati. We all loved each other so much. What a brilliant film. And your father produced that. And now you produce brilliant wine. So welcome, Sergio.
Thank you, John. Hello, everybody. I'd like to start with just a brief introduction of Rocca delle Macchie. Thanks, John. Yes, Rocca delle Macchie was founded by my father in 1973. And my father worked in a different industry, in film industry. He started from scratch and as a stuntman, and he made a very fast career in the film industry. He became the youngest producer when he was 28 years old. And the 60, he produced about 30, 40 different films. And fortunately for our family, in 70, 71, 72, he made 3 films. One of these is the greatest success of the time in the history of the cinema in Italy. And thanks to this, he could realize his dream to produce wine. My family came from Rome, and in 73, my father bought 2 estates in Castellini Chianti. The first one, the name is Le Macie, and the second, Sant'Alfonso. There weren't a vineyard in these 2 estates, so in the first 2 years, he planted about 80 hectares of vineyard in Le Macie and Sant'Alfonso. He built the first part of our cellar, and he restored the hamlet of Le Macie, where my family lives, where there is the head part of our company. In today, the Rocca Macie is 100% run by my family. We have 6 estates, 4 in Castellina, Le Macie, Fizzano, Sant'Alfonso, Montelupo, and Le Tavolelle, and 2 in Maremma, in southwest part of Tuscany, where we have 2 wonderful estates also there with Morellino, Vermentino. Our wine in this moment is present in more or less in 50 different countries. The second most important foreign market is Canada, and Ontario is our most important province in Canada. And I'm very proud today to present you our Sant'Alfonso. Sant'Alfonso is one of our 6 Chianti Classico, is one of our 4 Chianti Classico single vineyard. And all of these Chianti Classico are available in Ontario. Sant'Alfonso has a very particular story because I told you, my father bought in 1973. And at the time it was believed that there is a very rich of clay. In clay, this part of of this estate. At the time, it was believed that it was not suitable to plant vineyard in this kind of soil. And despite of the idea of the first enologist that it was against this idea to plant, my father decided to plant, and of course he decided also to change the enologist. So we found the second enologist.
Didn't like the advice of the first
time
one.
has proved him right, because we discovered that from this area we could produce a very interesting grapes for very interesting wine. And the 90, we decided also when it was allowed to produce Chianti Classico with only with the Sangiovese, we decided to replant the vineyard in this area to looking for the best clones for this kind of soil. And we discovered that for that we have also in extreme weather condition like 2014 and 2017. 2014 was very rainy. We had a very rainy and wet summer. 17 very dry and hot. And we discovered that the sites and the of the berry were more or less
the bunch size. The bunch size was the same in those 2 vintages.
Yes, this one, because this kind of soil, when there is a lot of rain, he doesn't absorb a lot of rain, and also is a little bit poor of oxygen. So they give the soil the right energy to the vines. In the dry season, hot season, if you work in the right way, the soil, the soil keep more the water reserve, so it continue to give the right energy to the plant. And so for this reason, we are very happy that my father decided to plant this part, also because particularly we are Sant'Alfonso is in front of San Fabiano Calcinaia estate, and so we are very proud to present this Chianti Classico that is no Riserva, is no Gran Selezione, is a Chianti Classico Dannata, we call it Dannata.
So would you say that of all of the single estate wines that you make, that Sant'Alfonso is the most consistent in terms of style, year after year, given this variability of the soil to handle high rain, low rain?
Yes, it's more. Yes, it's
more consistent.
We have, for example, we had a fantastic 2003. That we won a very important prize, but it was the best. It was a very warm season. And also 17, that today we present 17. 17 was, I told you, it was a hot and dry season. We produce also in this part, we produce mostly average about 10% less than the other vineyard with a different soil. For example, in Le Macie, we have more Alberese and Galestro. In Fizzano, more Alberese. That we have different result in the wine. In Sangiovese, in Le Macie, where we produce our Gran Selezione Sergio Zingarelli in the Le Terrazze vineyard, we have more elegant wines. In Sant'Alfonso is a very smoothie, good balance. Probably the wine cannot age for a long time like the wine that came from Galestro or Alberese soil.
Excellent.
Yes, for the sexual confusion,
I thought we might save that for the end, the sexual confusion, and keep your thoughts pure on wine here. This is, you know, a organic biological technique to combat pests.
Okay.
But let's talk about the style of this wine, because that's what we're all about. We're now comparing a clay soil, so we're back towards similar soils from San Fabiano Calcinaia, different from Monte Rinaldi, moving from rock back to clay. And when I tasted this last night and in previous tastings, for me, quite a broad, round, rich, smooth wine. You know, one of the smoother examples of 17. No sign of hydric stress here, no dry tannins, but a really round and creamy style of wine. Is that what you, how you would describe it regularly, Sergio?
I sometimes when the color is red ruby color, classic, is a little bit darker than the Sangiovese came from Le Macie or Fizzano. Is the aroma is rich, fruity with note of cherry and blackberry, and on the palate is elegant, is smoothie.
That's certainly very right. It's a Sangiovese that shifts from red, from the predominant red.
Yeah, I say crispy. I don't know crispy in English is croquant. I think is particular.
You can say crunchy, crispy, fresh in any case.
Viva.
Grazie. Beautiful. Thank you, Sergio. We'll have you back in a moment for a few questions, but let's get on with the last couple of wines. Now let's bring in Leonardo Bellaccini from San Felice. So we're heading down south now to Castelnuovo Beredenga. Do we have a map? Yes, we do here. So we're somewhere around here. Is that correct, Leonardo?
No, in the more on the east side.
I've lost my cursor. How close to there's the little butterfly, as they call it in Castelnuovo.
Yeah, a little north from here. No, I don't see anymore your exactly there. Yeah, we are there.
There we are. Okay, now you know where you're situated. Brilliant. All right. So Leonardo, you're going to tell us a little bit about your strategy of precision viticulture. It's a term that we hear quite frequently, but what exactly does it mean? What does it mean for San Felice?
Well, thank you, John, for giving me the opportunity to try to explain. Well, if you watch this shot of the vineyards, you see a different kind of green. Dark green in one side, light green, yellow, and this is a characteristic of any vineyards. If you watch at the end of the summer, you realize that we often talk about balance in the glass, but to achieve that is very important to start from balance in the vineyards.
Maybe I'll just jump ahead to some of the photos you're referring to so folks can follow along, and we'll come back in a second.
The first one, also these are the map, but the photo you show at the very beginning, if you go back again, here, no, the next one. Go ahead. No, head. Again, here. You see the no, sorry.
One more forward or?
No, back here, stop here. You see the vineyard. You see the vines close to you, but the next vineyards in the slope in front of you, you see some dark green, light green, or yellow.
Right,
here,
so
exactly right.
High vigor, lower vigor. Even here, there's some
yes,
browning plants.
Exactly. So and there you lose potential. Potential, that means you lose quantity and quality, both of them. Often when you talk with any winemaker and you talk about quality wine, everybody of us says, yes, I want to produce 1 kilo of grape per vine, or maybe 1.5, it doesn't matter. But that is always a result of an average that comes from vines that produce maybe 3 kilo and vines that produce half or even less. So you have, if you harvest it, when you go to the harvest, it is quite complicated to choose the best bunches and the best grape. So what we did in the last 10, 12 years is trying to recover in terms of balance of the vineyards. And naturally, the difference in color means that you have different soil and you cannot change the soil. But you can use different technique in order of nutrition, in order of different pruning, different number of buds per vine, different kind of cover crop, more fava beans, for instance, where when you have to push a little bit, or more barley or other kind of grain that reduce the vigor when the vigor is too much. And actually, what we have seen is a reduction of the weaker area and having a better balance. What we are doing today is we start when we replant vineyards, we start from the very beginning. So we use a technique that detect at the end of the summer the amount of water in the different corner of the plot. And so we start having different rootstock that perform, have a better perform in a dry area, or different rootstock if we have more moisture in the soil. And this is just to avoid, to don't, yeah. Here you can see, for instance, the tractor is doing the nutrition.
So I would assume, sorry to interrupt, but the tractor driver has the map, the vigor map that you've created through this fairly advanced process, and then would dose out the the fertilizers, the nutrients, as it moves through the rows in the areas where it's needed and stop where it's no longer needed?
Yes, it's practically the map is put in the computer of the tractors, and he do what he have to do. So the operator only need to drive.
Brilliant. It's like an autopilot. So the machinery knows when to open and when to close the chute and okay. So I get it. That's precision. All right. We don't need to go into the details of how you create these maps, but just understand that.
Actually, we don't create. We use is a very scientific tools. So it's not our invention. I mean, so but we work with the University of Milano, and since the very beginning, in end of late 1998 or 99. We start with doing the zoning, working in the different soil. The soil that you described at the very beginning is what we also have in our estate. So we.
So I just have to ask then, which of the soil, the main soils that we were describing, need the most nutrients? If we could just say, like, which are the poor soils that tend to yield less, that need a little bit of a push?
It's not a matter of a kind of soil. Often is a matter of the mistake that we do. When we replant vineyards or plant vineyards, often because we need to use tractors, everybody is doing with mechanical operation. So we try to make a sort of flat vineyards, reducing the slope, and this make that you take out some unfertile soil, and that is very complicated then. So what we are doing today is preserve the profile of the hill. Don't touch like we used to do in the 80s or in the 90s, but reducing the movement of the soil just to preserve the good soil which is on top.
We call that bulldozer disease, when you
Exactly.
use a bulldozer to completely reshape the hill, but then you mess up the natural layers of soil that have formed over time. So I have to ask Leonardo one perhaps silly question. Is there a danger of going too far? That is, to get every plant to the same degree of ripeness at all the time? Is there a risk of perhaps reducing some of the naturally inherent complexity in a site by making everything perfectly green, as we see in that bottom right-hand corner?
No, I don't think it's a big issue, that, because naturally could be if you are talking about one vineyard. But in any estate, I talk for San Felice, we have 150 hectares in Castelnuovo Berendenga. So we have, as I told you, we have vineyards in different soil, different elevation, from 300 meters up to 450 meters, and different exposure. So we have so many opportunity to have higher acidity, lower acidity, more alcohol, more body, or more easy drinking wine, or wine that need aging. So no, I think
your complexity comes from blending different parcels, different sites that each on their own are balanced, but they're slightly different from all of the rest. So together you create a little bit more of a symphony.
Yes, that could be a kind of reading, but I think complexity also come from the soil. So then if you are doing, as you said, the bulldoze disease, is not a matter of good or bad soil. It is a bad operation. So, but the complexity really come, as you told at the beginning. I think that I prefer for Sangiovese the Alberese or Galestro soil, where I think the Sangiovese produce the best grape for wine that can age longer in the cellar. And actually, when we did the zoning and I replanted all the 150 hectares between 1995 and 2008, I choose for Sangiovese mostly Alberese and very few on the limestone and very few on the sandy soil from the Pliocene.
Okay, so we've got the Riserva here, Il Grigio 2017. Yes. So this is a real mix of soils, according to the tech sheet here, Albarese, Galestro, and some Macigno, some sandstone. So is this your representative wine of Castelnuovo, blending the three main soil types, or is there one that predominates stylistically for you in this blend?
For sure, the predominant is Albarese in this wine. And by the way, is a wine that comes from different vineyards. So it's a selection of, at the harvest, I selected all the grape from each vineyard in first choice and second choice. So for this wine, only the first choice of the grapes is dedicated to the Riserva production. And mostly from Albarese. And as you know, the 17 vintage has been a tremendous, incredibly hot and dry summer after a dry winter. So the result is a wine, first of all, is a reduction in terms of yield. The yield was reduced by more than 30% naturally. Mm-hmm. And then I have to say that according to my opinion, mostly of the 17 doesn't show the character of a very hot summer because the heat arrives at the very beginning. So the vines start to reduce the numbers and the size of the leaves to preserve the water in the trunk, in the reservoir. And so if you watch the alcohol content of several wine from the 17 are not so high, like 16 or 15. So this means that, and the acidity is higher than usual. If you watch here, I see the pH, 3.44 is a pH that is a dream in many vintage because the pH are always 3.6, 3.7 in this part of Chianti. I mean, I don't want to talk for the whole appellation, but in my estate. So
this was a stopping of the maturation process that didn't accumulate too many sugars, didn't allow the acidity to drop out, sort of concentrated everything in that sense? Yes,
in that sense, but it doesn't stop at a certain point. It really starts very slow and go through the whole summer slow by slow, day by day, because every day was a challenge for the vine to survive, really.
Mm. Well, survive they did, and produce fine wine they also did. I would just direct everyone's attention back to the structure here. We've gone from Sergio's clay-based wine, which I found much more round and voluptuous. We're back to something a little bit more vertical here with the fine grain, I won't say sharper tannins, but more gritty, grainy tannins that I associate with Albarese and Galestro in particular. Well, thank you. Leonardo, don't go away. I know it's almost aperitivo hour, but we'll have you back in just a second. But let's bring in Marco Ricasoli. And by the way, I know we're scheduled to finish around 1:15, and I appreciate all of your attention and your patience. If you need to go, of course, don't go until you've tasted Marco's wine. But we'll stick around for a little bit afterwards if you've got some spare time and you want to ask your questions at that point. But for the time being, where is Marco Ricasoli Firidolfi, very well-known family in the Chianti Classico area. Some of you might know the name Barone Ricasoli, same family, but they split at some point. And this estate goes back to, Marco will tell us, but back to the 7th, 8th century, first mentions. Dove Marco? You need to unmute yourself, please.
Exactly, yes.
Hey.
Yeah, ciao,
Okay.
ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, producing wine from a very long time. Yeah, our family. Sometimes I say very boring family, always doing the same job from so many centuries.
Getting it right, slowly but surely. I see.
Exactly.
Getting well right. All right, so we're down in Gaiole here, Monti in Chianti. So a nice little elevated site, beautiful little spot of the Chianti Classico region. But Marcos, tell us a little bit about your estate first of all, and then I really want to get into your dirt, your soils, because I know you've got some nice dirt to talk about.
Yeah, and this, as you said before, the biodiversity of Chianti Classico is such amazing. And the picture that you see here, it gives you the sense of the place, the beauty of the place. Because when we talk about Chianti Classico, Tuscany in general, it's not only vineyards, a vineyard, olive trees, a forest, castle, villa, nice houses. So it's really, we are never tired to enjoy the beauty of this land. Land very particular and really great for high quality wine. I'm the producer, the wine grower of Rocca di Montegrossi. Sometimes I like to say I'm the conductor. There are supervisor, everything around what happened around Rocca di Montegrossi. It's a winery state of 20 hectares of vineyards, around 10 of olive trees, and 40 of forest. We grow our vine with organic agriculture. This is something very important to me, because I think it's the responsibility of everybody, every producer, is to protect the land and to give our contribution to protect Mother Nature. So this it is something very important. When I start in 1984 till 2010, I was in sustainable agriculture. In 2010, I start to feel a little more sure about my job, and I start to grow my vineyards with the method of organic agriculture.
Was there ever a time when agriculture was conventional in the sense that we understand it in the 20th, 21st century? I mean, everything would have been de facto organic back in the day, and there was maybe a little period where some herbicide, pesticides were used, but then you moved away from that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, even if before, as I say, is sustainable agriculture. So from the first beginning, I was very careful to grow with responsibility in my vineyard. It is very important for the people that work in the vineyards, for everybody, and for the final production. Let's say for what we're drinking, I think it is very important to produce something that is hopefully of high quality, but also healthy. And so, as I said before, we are in so it is this subzone southeast of Gaiole in Chianti. It's, we can say, a little plateau. We are quite high in altitude. We can say the average would be 400 meters of altitude, and mostly composed by limestone and marlstone. They are very rich in calcium, so marna calcarea. So the calcium, the calcium is one of the key to understand also a wine. For instance, the color as well, because the calcium helps to fix the color to all the wine they will produce, Sangiovese is included. So for instance, in Monti Chianti, the Sangiovese has a more deep color compared to other area very close to us as well, because of the calcium that helps, as I told, to fix the color to the wine.
So you would say that in Macigno, for example, with very low calcium calcite content, you would see a more pale orange garnet Sangiovese color?
Yeah. Depend, of course, also the altitude. But for instance, if you can compare, even if, let's say, Gaiole in Chianti itself is quite big, and we can say that it's more divided in 4 different micro area, so even to generalize Gaiole in Chianti could be maybe a little mistake. But let's say Gaiole compare Radda, where in Radda mainly you have more Galestro, and in Gaiole we talk about more limestone. You can see some differences in the color as well. So as I told you, in our area, the color Sangiovese is, of course, it's ruby, because it is the color, the typical color of Chianti Classico, of the Sangiovese, but more deep ruby color. And this it is in all the vintages. Then, of course, the color is not only because of the stone, but also if you pick the grapes at the right time, so at the perfect maturation. That is what we try to do every year. So to pick the grapes when they're perfectly mature, and in that way they can release a nice color, nice fruit, more right tannin to the wine. As you can see in the picture here, the stones, there are quite many. It's a very stony soil. So in a way, we hate those stones because it makes very complicated our job in the vineyards. And a lot of damage to the tractor, all the machinery, but at the same time, they're very important for the character of wine. So for the drain of the soil and for the roots, they can go deep to explore all the soil and to give more complexity to the wine. And for minerality, the spiciness given by minerality, this kind of sharp taste, very important, that you can recognize in all the vintages. And at the same time, very important to help us to achieve good quality in very different, in vintages that could be very warm, or vintages very cool and rainy, like it was, for instance, 14 that we taste today, the Gran Selezione San Marcellino 14. So those stones are very helping in that characteristic as well.
Can you describe the two main soil, or two main stone types we see here, the more whitish gray ones on the left and the golden colored ones on the right?
Yes, yeah, those one on the left. So we talk about limestone, especially limestone, that we are very rich on limestone. It is a very hard stone. As you said before, if you want to build a house, you would choose those ones.
Right, so that's Alberese.
It's very fragile. Even actually the little church of San Marcellino, they give the name to the vineyard San Marcellino. It is 1,000 year, has been in the 11th century, is made, of course, from limestone. It is a very strong stone that lasts forever, we can say. And the training of our vineyards nowadays are mainly Guyot. So in the last 10 years, 10, 15 years, we changed the train of most of our vineyard from Cordone Speronato to Guyot for many reasons. First one, I should say the Cordone after 10, 15 years, it started to produce too little. That doesn't mean too little production, so very low yield, necessary high quality. Actually, I think nowadays with the change of climate, this could be even negative, because there is an acceleration with very little quantity, very few bunches on the vine, with this climate that it's the average, it's more warmer with anticipate springs. This low yield can be pushed to accelerate the process of maturation of the grapes, and these could be not necessarily positive. So
because you don't get the hang time that you would with a slightly higher crop, right? The fewer bunches that you have reach maturity much more quickly, accumulate sugar without necessarily developing full flavor, full phenolic maturity.
Yeah, they can mature, but more in kind of concentration of sugar than in alcohol, and not the phenolic side that is important for the final result. So more they can mature slowly, and better it is. Also because what we've seen the last 20 years, waves of heat at the end of August, even in September. So it is very important that the grapes are not too mature too early, because they go through well this particular trend of the weather. Even if now we talk about 14, and 14 it was opposite, it was a very rainy, cloudy vintage. but due to the way that we are quite high, as I told you before, and the good things of Monte Chianti, so the subzone of Gaiole, this is very wide. So we don't have hills close to us, the area. So there's a very good circulation of air, very important in both situations. So in the very warm vintages and dry, so there is good ventilation, and the night, it's rare that it's too warm. But also in vintages, very rainy and cloudy, like 14. Of course, it's not enough. Then you have to work on the vine to risk some time to try to achieve a good quality also in those vintages. But what I believe is great terroir helps the producer to achieve good quality in every vintages. So at the end,
you would expect consistency out of a great vineyard.
Yes, yes. So I believe that, yeah, of course, it's our work and we do our best, but it's because we're there that maybe we're able to achieve good quality. Because without the help of the particular situation there, your vineyards, where your vineyards are located, even if you do it correctly, if you're not in the right spot, in some vintages it would be very difficult to achieve good quality. Now here we have two beautiful pictures. On the left side, you can see the typical bunch of Sangiovese. These are Sangiovese planted in the last 20, 25 years, because you can see the bunch is not too big, because those one of the 60 to 70, generally the berry are bigger and the bunch more tight. The new clone of Sangiovese, they are relatively easier to grow because they're not too tight and not too big. So more difficult, more easy to not hidden by the mold in September, October. And so you can take more risk to keep in the field the grapes before they're perfectly mature and ready to be picked. On the right side, you have the Punitello with the fist closed. So you understand.
Now we know where the name comes from. Pugno, fist,
yeah,
the size of a fist, typical. Much larger bunches though than Sangiovese or grapes, it seems.
Yeah, exactly. You can see it's a very, very little bunch made by, we can count, by the way, 20 berries, more or less, 20-ish, and bigger, very thick skin, and the bunch is very small. So I should say that even if Punitello produced very, very low yield, we talk about max, it's difficult to reach a half kilo of berry in total by vine. So actually,
and so what does it bring to your San Marcellino? What does it, you say, about 10% here?
First of all the complementary grapes of Sangiovese, of Chianti Classico, I consider Punitello, these were they keep a high standard quality in all the vintages. It's really, it produced very low quantity, but at least I'm never worried to lose quantity and quality from Punitello. It's a grape so that bring more wild fruit flavors in the blend of the Sangiovese of San Marcellino vineyards. Compare the more straight, sharp, you can say, and elegant flavors of Sangiovese of San Marcellino. So together, they get very well together, and at the same time, Punitello, like all the complementary grapes of Sangiovese, it never hide Sangiovese. This to me is very, very important, because other grape variety, they can get very well with Sangiovese, but maybe they can hide the personality, the fruit of
like Cabernet or Merlot, for example, which tend to have quite a dominating effect on Sangiovese. I'm talking about the indigenous grapes.
Yeah, also because when the terroir is really great, any grape variety reflects the area. So the Merlot, the Cabernet, really they Gaiolish, as I like to say, but still the fruit and the tannins are very different. So they will really overpower, let's say, the Sangiovese. Punitello and all the other complementary grape varieties of Sangiovese, they doesn't. They're very respectful of Sangiovese. This it is what I like of those complementary grape. Punitello, for my opinion, is the best one, because nothing missing.
Brilliant. Well, I hope everyone's enjoying the San Marcellino. We'll talk about it in a second, but we've got a couple of polls just for fun, just to see if you're all paying attention. Oh, well, it's coming in quickly. I'm going to let that sit up there for just a couple of moments. I've got one more just after this, and I know we're running a little bit long, but I do want you to pull out the olive oil from San Felice. We'll get Leonardo back in a second just to give us a little lowdown on how to taste olive oil, first of all, and what we can expect, what varieties are in play here. But I have to say, Marco, lovely 2014. We know it was a challenging vintage, but as you said, great sites make all the difference in all the years. This for me now is starting to move into that more mature phase where it develops a lot of porcini. I just want to have a porcini risotto with this or something of that nature. Maybe a little ragu di cinghiale, which some of us have in our fridges ready to go this afternoon. How long would you continue to age this wine?
But I should say the 14 now, after let's say 4 years in the bottle, because we like to keep the wine a long time before to start to release the wine. I think it starts now to be more round, more soft, more not ready, but let's say very enjoyable. Really a nice time to enjoy the San Marcellino 14. But it is a wine I think you can keep for other. Let's say 14, not for many years, but still I think around 10 years is going to show in a very beautiful way.
No rush. Marvelous. Okay, well done, everyone.
Never rush, I think, generally speaking, with Chianti Classico. And for sure, when we talk about wine of Gaiole, they're wines that they enjoy a lot aging.
I couldn't agree more. So, all right, our poll is in. Well done, Tufo. That's substandard volcanic soil. Nothing good grows on volcanoes. We know that for sure. Albarese, Galestro, the two important rocks, and Macigno, the sandstone, also an important soil here. All right, let's go to poll number 2. See, normally Will does this, but he had to. So I got to relaunch that. There we go. I got it, Will. Don't worry, I'm on it. Okay, poll 2 in progress. This is the more complicated question. This might be a little bit more challenging, although all have an important effect, as we know. Which of the following factors has the greatest individual impact on the styles of Chianti Classico that we have been discussing? Is it clone? Yes, that matters. Is it where you age it? Of course, if you throw it in a barrique, brand new, it'll change. Is it the commune? Tough to say. I mean, one day we might see communal designations on Chianti Classico, but would that really tell the whole story? Or is it the predominant soil type? I will let you decide. A couple of more moments, but let us get out of this screen share and bring everyone back in. And actually, I'd like to have Leonardo talk about this wonderful olive oil from San Felice. Thank you, Marco. But go away.
Oh, thank you, John.
So talk about Chianti naturally is mandatory talk about wine, but you never should forget the extra virgin olive oil, which is for us wine producer, for sure one of the most of the product that we are proud the most. And the DOP Chianti Classico from San Felice is produced from a blend. Predominantly is Frantoio varieties, 75–80%, with approximately 10% of Lecchino and 10% of Moraiolo. And naturally, I'm sure, should I have to talk about the production process, or people are familiar with? I don't know.
But tell us about the tasting process. What do you use to evaluate olive oil?
Is something that is is a little complicated because people are not used. Often people taste with bread, taste it with other things. Actually, if you want to do a professional taste, you need a little glass, not clear glass, not white, because you shouldn't be influenced by the color. And the temperature is important in the wine, but is much more important in the olive oil. So it shouldn't be too cold because you lose mostly of the flavor. The little glass we use is usually handle in the hand, and is covered with another on top just to preserve, and then we are looking for fresh grass flavor, artichoke or other green vegetable leaves.
What is it that gives that burn in the back of the throat, particularly with Tuscan olive oil, particularly with Chianti Classico, that really pungent, delightful sensation?
That characteristic that for people that are not used to, sometimes is not considered a good thing. Actually, is what we are looking for. First of all, because we like, but also because we know that for the healthy point of view is very important, because the spiciness that you have in your throat is made by polyphenols and E vitamin, both of them that preserve the olive oil by the oxidation, but also help our body to be preserved by the oxidation.
One question just about storage. This is my personal curiosity. Obviously, serving room temperature, you want all the beauty that it has to offer, but would you ever recommend storing it in a cold area, a refrigerator, when it actually turns firm, just to preserve it, or does that not extend the shelf life?
No, fresh, but not refrigerated. I mean, 10, 12 degrees, not lower, is perfect. And very important is also the light. Protect from the light. If you have 2 little bottles, you keep one bottle on the kitchen and another bottle down, and you see in 1 week a huge difference in both color, flavor, everything. So olive oil actually is very delicate. So oxygen naturally is made more than 99% is fat, and all the fat material are easily degraded by the
oxidized.
Exactly. So and they become rancid. How do you say?
Rancid, yeah. That's a good note to the restaurateurs out there. Don't store your olive oil in direct sunlight, or even indirect sunlight for that matter. Dark, cool, in your wine cellar.
Use in few days. I mean, I suppose that in a kitchen of a restaurant they use a bottle of olive oil. It doesn't last for 1 month. I mean, so
I'm thinking of the days when the bottles of olive oil used to sit on restaurant tables. You know, you'd have your little thing for the balsamico and the olive oil, and it would be out there in the heat and the light. Probably not ideal for the product.
No, and probably is not a DOP olive oil. Often, unfortunately, but not. I mean, not only in Canada. In Italy, in Tuscany, is unfortunately the same. The olive oil which is on the table, except few exceptions of restaurateurs that invested in olive oil, are often because the problem is that the olive oil is for free. You put on the table, and people waiting the food eat bread and olive oil. So restaurateurs doesn't invest in something that they have to give for free.
All right. So last question, and then we'll sort of wrap things up. But I have to know this: Tuscan olive oil, DOP olive oil, is not inexpensive. But is there any profit to be made on it, or is it just something you do because it's always been done in the region and it complements the wine and it's part of the culture, or is there a business?
Both of them, but making a business is relatively complicated. Before bottling, the cost of 1 liter, industrial cost, is easily 10 euros. in our region easily, not less. This is due to because all the operation have to be made by hand, because the olives are planted in a slope on the wall, so it's quite complicated, and the yield per tree is very small. The average is between 1 liter, 1.5 liter per year. So if you consider one tree, you have to prune, you have to pick, you have to clean the soil and press, or we don't press anymore, I say press, but and produce the olive oil. All those operations, you cannot do all of them with less than 10 euro.
Wow. Okay. So there you have it, folks. We have found an agricultural product that's even less profitable than wine. There you go. So
sure,
we understand that when we're tasting this beautiful olive oil, it's made out of love and passion as opposed to a search for profit.
But I think I can say also for my other friend, other producer, we couldn't survive without olive oil. So I'm sure we keep doing our best to produce better quality and better profit by the olives.
Wow, brilliant. Thank you. I know we've run a little bit over time, sorry for keeping you all past the appointed hour. Glad you did stay with us. So that was a fascinating little end piece on olive oil. We should include that more frequently in these wine tasting, because it is so much a part of the culture, certainly in Italy, certainly in Chianti Classico. But a huge heartfelt thanks to all of our panelists, Niccolò, Fabrizio, Sergio, Marco, Leonardo. Great to have you here. Christine, of course, from the Consorzio, thanks so much for putting this on for us over here in the snowy wilds of Toronto. This was a great little way to spend the afternoon. And thanks, Will. I'll turn it over to you for spearheading all of this.
Yeah, great. No, thank you, John. Obviously, you put in a significant amount of effort behind taking us through this journey and relating it to soil and relating it to these 5 excellent producers. I do have a survey that I put in the bottom there. We really would appreciate your feedback. It helps us to improve, to do things better. We do hope to see you in, human form, not on screen someday again. We will be doing something like that, hopefully later this year or early next. But thank you for your time and spending it with us. Hopefully you found this to be worthwhile. I definitely did. And enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Will. Thank you, John. And we wait for you to come to Chianti Classico as soon as possible, just to see all what John explained in real life. And if you, in the meantime, if you want to visit our website, we have a new website which is shared. Also, we'll share it's chianticlassico.com. You see the views, 360 degrees views, so you really can go and see what John just explained to you.